The steel door of the ladies' home remained intact against the firebombs. The two accomplices believed that their bombs should have made a man-sized hole in the steel door. So, they planned to install another one. It looks like things have gone south for the ladies. Before one of the villainous priests could install another explosive, the door opened to reveal the two women. Yap Bouillon insisted that the despicable Zhou Jiagang deserved to die for his evil deeds, but the intruders just won't accept her words, no matter how many times she repeats herself. It's finally clear that these guys are here for revenge, and they're not aware of Sool's involvement. These villains are heavenly birth alchemists, and his fourth master drilled into him not to help others by risking himself. But he just can't stand by, as he promised to give the girls eternal youth done pills. For now, he'll plan his course of action. The priests are finally done exchanging words. If the girls don't obediently give in, the villains are going to subdue the two by force. The bald priest conjured a massive flaming ink from his brush to bring the girls to their knees. Fortunately, the two can create a barrier in time to block it, but as they are preoccupied with the flames, the man has already positioned himself right past them. The bald priest is now cornering them from behind, while the other one is sieging from the front. Since they don't have Dharma tools, they can't even retreat. The bald man is skeptical how they beat the formidable Jiagang. The two men are convinced that the women used some underhanded tactics. One of them suggested using his cracking whip to dominate the girls, but he's got another thing coming. Sool rushed to the scene with a sword in hand while throwing some hidden daggers. The priest was so pleased with himself that he failed to sense the incoming danger until it was too late. He was surprisingly blinded by the effects of Jiagang's looted delicate jade staff. He cracked his whip in the direction of the attack, asking who was in front of him. Unfortunately, Sool is still quite a way off from his striking distance compared to the whip. The weapon wrapped around his hand, restricting its movement. He tried to cut it with his weapon to no avail. The man ridiculed him for trying to cut the whip while pulling him closer. He successfully dragged him out of the ground and into the sky, while claw blades awaited his landing. The man is confident that it's already over for Sool as he jabbed his claw blade against him. When he realized that Sool's fighting style was not distance-oriented, it was already too late. His blade didn't even fracture Sool's ribs, as our boy stockpiled energy in his mouth. He released the swelter of anxiety at point-blank range, enveloping the villain. The man thrashed around while burning all over, but Sool even followed it up with his energy burst, launching daggers. The man is burning and his daggers lodge all over him, and Sool is still posturing with his sword. He rushed with formidable speed against the defenseless villain. He skillfully cuts him in half with a single slash. This dude really gave him an overkill Mortal Kombat fatality. The bald priest couldn't help but yell for his companion. Now that Sool is here, the tables have turned against the villainous priests. His white spider sword is quite handy, and he also has a firebomb in hand. Now that they hold the numbers advantage, he's sure that they stand a chance. The bald man's anger has flared as he now knows who's responsible for killing Jiagang. Today, he vowed to comfort the souls of his two brothers with the blood of their enemies. Coming from inside the cramped entrance, a scorching blaze started to escape. The explosion following was bigger than any firebombs the villains were using earlier. The bald man proposed that if the girls slashed Sool's throat, he would go easy on them. Of course, they would not fall for that, so the three brandished their respective Dharma tools in preparation. Despite their efforts, this kind of attack doesn't seem quite enough against the bald man's defense. This priest is still extremely salty that his brothers die because of tricks. He's convinced that this group wouldn't even be able to touch his hair. Brother in Christ, what hair are you talking about? If his baldy is relying on his flame barrier to neutralize them, Sool thinks about using the firebomb. He threw it with perfect precision and remarkable speed. The bald priest immediately recognized that it was a firebomb coming for him. If he blocks with the flame barrier, he'll be toast with the explosion. He panicked for a little bit as the bomb came so close to landing on him, but he quickly dodged its predictable trajectory. Sool responded with a confident smile as he tugged on an almost invisible silk string. Baldy was quick to sense that something was afoot. But when he turned around to see what was up, the lit-up firebomb was already upon him. Sool successfully exploited Baldy's sole dependence on the flame barrier. Baldy couldn't help but despair at his inevitable demise against the firebomb. A massive explosion swallowed him whole, vaporizing his body. If it weren't for his white spider sword and web, it would have been difficult to get this win. Sool turned around to check on the girls to see if they were hurt in any way. It's already the second time that they have been saved by this young man. Seulji couldn't help but dive into him with a grateful hug as the two of them thanked him sincerely. Is the ship sailing? They hadn't heard from him in the past year, so they thought that he had died. Thankfully, he came out just in time to fulfill his promise to them. This can only mean one thing for the ladies. Inside the abode, he showed them the fruits of his successful dun extraction. As promised, he's going to give them one pill each. They never would have thought that they could take eternal youth dun pills in this lifetime. On top of that, Soul even made them partial dun seals to help them nurture their spirit energy. This man is a certified Riz alchemist. Now he's planning to extract the dun from the girls' herb collection, even though he's still hesitant to take over their legacy. But the ladies insisted that they wholeheartedly trust their savior for this. If he extracts dun from this massive amount of ingredients, it will take him at least 5 years. That's a full-time job at this point. And so 5 years passed just like that. Inside one of the houses in the village, the bedridden second master expressed his pride in Soul for greatly improving his abilities. This old man had chanted thousands of demon spells and tried to tame a fiend, leading to the loss of his spirit energy. He advised the young man not to do something as stupid as that. Nonetheless, the second master was relieved to see his boy in his final moments. He was certain that Soul would be able to enjoy eternal life. He tasked him with taking care of the shadow orchid and never forgetting to light torches at night. Those were the final words of his second master before he peacefully passed. It hadn't been long since the other masters had passed away, and they were already burying another one. Jiangan already knew that the second master was no fun, but to think that he had even passed away so quietly, he was no fun until the very end. He even joked that there weren't many days before his time comes as well. He looked sincerely at his disciple. Since Soul already knew the other master's stories, it was about time he shared his own. Among alchemists, he was an infamous thief born without natural talent. When he found out about alchemists, he stole all kinds of elixirs to pursue eternal life. At the age of 40, he obtained natural talent and became an alchemist himself. He ended up with the nickname the Goblin Bandit. If his Nidan were intact, he would have stolen Soul's eternal youth dun pill too. He insisted that he would have given it to his master without contest. That's not what Jiangan taught him. If the other masters Nidan were fine, they wouldn't have taught Soul at all. And he knows that his fourth master is right. Alchemists are people who would do anything to become masters of their own destiny. After all, they cannot be trusted. Maybe the first and second master weren't like that, but Jiangan fits the description. This thought cast a depressing mood over Soul. Jiangan only wanted to say that he's not that person anymore as he pinched his disciple. He's relieved that Soul came into his and the other masters' lives. He sincerely thanked the boy. However, he's still curious about something else. The younger master, with the passage of time painted on his face, asked what it was. Up until now, no one still knew the identity of the younger master. He thought that it's useless to know such things now. But Jiangan wouldn't be able to rest in peace if he couldn't find out. This is him cashing in on his first and last favor to the younger master. It's really his dying wish that the younger master introduce himself as Peng Xiang. The mention of his name shocked Jiangan immensely. If he's not wrong, then this man is the monarch of the evil sword and the martial gatekeeper, Senior Peng Xiang. Jiangan didn't expect such a formidable figure to be imprisoned in this place for so long. He was already taken aback that the late Senior Ak was a genius without knowing they had another one. He asked Peng what the secret was to achieve the vitality of yin and yang in just 300 years. But he just dismissed Jiangan, telling him that there's nothing to know with their Nidan destroyed, but it's a different story with their soul. Jiangan insisted that the late Senior Ak would not disagree if Peng took on the role of Soul's first master. This man just coldly declined the offer. Jiangan knows that for a guy like Peng to end up here, a terrible conspiracy must have taken place. He asked the man if he wants to take revenge. If that's the case, then Soul can undoubtedly get his vengeance once he learns Peng's ways before leaving the forest of beasts. Peng just continued to walk away, pretending not to hear Jiangan's words. Another 2 years have passed in the forest. Jiangan is recounting the time when he was finally caught. He told his captors where all of his treasures were located to save his life. However, he kept his most bizarre and unknown treasure a secret. Now, he'll tell Soul where he hid the key of 100 choices. The location of that key is the last help that he can give his disciple. Even if Senior Peng doesn't take Soul and disciple, he must attain eternal life doing what he wants as a better man. Jiangan assured his disciple, and more aptly, his son, that he will protect him in the next life. Jiangan was a real one. Rest in peace. Soul has yet again buried another one of the people closest to him. The young boy has become a young man who has seen the deaths of people he loves. It's been a week since Jiangan passed, and he's standing before Peng with a settled mind. He's here to humbly ask for the Armless Master's teachings. 21 years ago, Peng taught him a chant of some kind. Soul still remembers that night. This chant was just the tip of the iceberg. It developed Sool's mind to maintain peace in any situation. Peng had shared it on a whim, but if Sool wanted to serve him as a master to receive his legacy, that the story would become vastly different. Sool is determined to do whatever this fallen genius wanted him to do. Peng stated 2 conditions to take him in. First, just like Zhanggan said, he'll have to take revenge on Peng's behalf. He was ambushed by unknown people. They broke his naiden and cut his arms off, then threw him into this forest. Sool must find out the culprits and take vengeance. He swore that once he gets out of the forest of beasts, he would stop at nothing for this revenge. For the second condition, Master Peng will pass on destruction sword arts, string craftsmanship, chant of black ice, and freehand sword technique. But after Sool learns everything, he must kill his last master with destruction sword arts. Hearing this final condition bewildered Sool. He did not expect that killing Master Peng is the final requirement to inherit his legacy. 7 years later, Master Peng stands at the highest point of a plateau. He asks Sool if he's prepared for what they're about to do. The fully grown boy confirms that he is, holding a sword in his hand. Master Peng wears an accepting smile on his lips as he leaves everything up to him. He understands what he must do right now. The wind blows through his hair as the master and disciple share a moment of silence. He thinks about all his mentors. He implores them to watch over his every step until the end. With pure determination in his eyes, he changes his stance. He exhibits a powerful burst of speed. He activates hovering steps equipped with a sword and daggers. Master Peng wanted to teach him that good-natured people like him will be used endlessly. Eventually, he'll have to create a standard of accepting and disconnecting from human relationships. Right now, Peng has finally understood what Zhanggan always babbled about. He watches Sool execute one masterful move after another in quick succession. Peng has become convinced that Sool's good nature will be his strength. As a man of destruction, it wasn't easy for Peng to take him in. The master hopes that he understands someday. Sool is now capable of emanating a terrifying amount of power. He can charge in just a blink of an eye. He can float into the air and attack from above. The always scowling Master Peng has learned how to smile again, thanks to his disciple. Just like the other 4 masters who passed, someone like him, who had lost all hope for the future, has found meaning in life again. Even with the wrinkles on his aged face, he looks more at peace than ever. Sool's reluctance to land the strike is evident in his face. Peng has to scream at him to come and fulfill the condition. And so, he unleashes the fearsome flying swallow energy strike. This is what his master always wanted to see again. This is his beloved destruction sword arts. Peng Xiyang peacefully passes in the hands of his only disciple. Sool has put all his 5 masters, mentors, and fathers to rest. He kneels and pays respects in front of their tombstones for the last time. He now leaves the ghost village to head for the outside world, living by the ways they have taught him. He will treat the deserving better than the goddess of mercy and the wicked worse than a demon. He'll become a terrifying enemy for his master's enemies and vows to get their revenge. Sool embarks on his journey with the Jade Ravine boar atop his flying sword. He wants to make another stop somewhere before leaving. It's the home of the 2 women. Seolji slowly opens the doors, knowing who their visitor is. It has been 9 years, 7 months, and 12 days. Sool reasons that he had a lot on his plate. It's been a long time since he's been here, and yet it looks like he's leaving again. But Seolji knows that there's nowhere else to go in the forest of beasts. That's when he reveals that he's leaving the area altogether. This shocks the lady. Everyone trapped in here has had that thought. Even she and her sister want to get out. It might not be clear, but Sool has a clue. If there's a chance, he's determined to take it. Seolji is worried that he might just be chasing a floating cloud. But he believes that everything can seem impossible before you achieve it. His results will speak for themselves. Seeing how determined he is to leave saddens her. She tries to feign a smile while wishing him luck in achieving his goals. He thanks her for this, but she still has another worry about his journey. She reminds him that whenever he gets tired, he can always come back here. She and her sister would welcome him with open arms. If I were Sool, I would have folded right then and there. Sool will keep this invitation in mind, and so, night falls in the forest of beasts. He decides to take a break from his journey and sets up camp in one of the mountains. He asks the sisters where an ancient dragon might reside, and they give him 4 possible locations. Right now, he rests with the Jade Ravine boar. This was the 4th place on their list, but there's no sign of an ancient dragon. He was so confident when he left, only for that confidence to be extinguished. While he wallows in disappointment, his boar makes an alarming sound. It turns out that the little guy bumped its head on the mountain walls. He takes this as his pet being frustrated as well and banging its head against a wall. But examining the surface closely, there's something odd about the crevice. Surprisingly, there's an airflow coming from within the walls. Thinking that there's something inside, he strikes the walls completely. With a sword in hand, something unusual is revealed in front of him. There's much more of the cave inside this secret wall. If it crumbled like this, it's likely that everything inside has been buried. But he starts to notice that there's something deep inside. When he takes a closer look, it resembles a human asking for help. It's a woman chained up at the end of the cave, pleading for anyone's help. She doesn't look like she's doing well while locked up in chains. Sool observes the chained-up woman carefully. He asks her who she is and how she ended up in this predicament. She explains that she ended up here after refusing those who tried to force her into becoming a concubine. He sympathizes with people who have been abused, so he wants to release the deceitful woman. She puts on the best appreciative face she can while telling him that she'll do anything. Sool gets closer and observes that she's bound by a chain with such strong spirit energy. He asks her what she thinks about that observation. Insert Among Us Su's sound effect. She feigns ignorance, telling him that she just wants to get out right away. She says that she doesn't know where she is, as people just dragged her here. He explains that this is the forest of beasts, a den of strange creatures. Some fiends can even turn into humans. She continues to act like she doesn't know what he's hinting at. He asks her if she knows about a plant called the shadow orchid, a plant that gives off a smell that fiends hate. In his hand is a vial of condensed essence from the plant. He's really pulling out the fart essence for this one. Sool admits that he doesn't know if he'll be effective or not, but the woman is already showing signs of panic. He opens the vial to put his experiment to the test. The woman starts to have a hostile reaction to the smell. She transforms into a fiend and snarls at Sool to get away from her. She starts begging him to go away with his accursed shadow orchid essence. He starts taking out his sword from the pouch, causing the beast to panic. She promises that if he releases her, she'll never harm him and will give Sool anything he wants. He asks her if that offer really includes everything. Ayo, are we switching to a very different genre? After being chained for 200 years, she's willing to go the distance within her power. She insists that she won't be able to harm him. If that is indeed true, Sool wants to see if they can make a deal. He asks her if she knows of any place where an ancient dragon could reside. Now she knows why he's wandering around this place, but with his meager abilities, he won't even be able to touch an ancient dragon. He already knows his limits, but he still needs the location. Having lived here for so long, the fiend swears that she knows where it might be. But she's not stupid enough to tell that information without being set free. But it's the same with her. She could just kill him where she's unchained. This fiend wants to stand her ground and never say a thing before being released. So, to not put himself in any danger, Sool would just walk away. He reassures the fiend that she will wait for another 100 years before native people come here. In addition, he'll restore the entrance back to its concealed state. Even if fearsome fiend cannot keep her calm after hearing those threats, she has no choice other than to reveal the location in hopes of Sool coming back. She's not in any position to demand fairness in this exchange. She feels like she's being cheated, but what other choice does the fiend have? If he enters the dragon's cave and dies, he won't even be able to come back to release her. Even a young ancient dragon is a low-level fiend like her. Harming a human alchemist is child's play to them. Before making a deal, she asks him what his name is. He introduces himself as the disgraceful priest, Jojagon. This fiend is the nine-tailed evil fox, and her kind never forget grudges and revenge. Although she'll reward him when her chain gets broken, she'll also make his life hell if she's deceived. Sool assures the fiend that he'll remember that sentiment. So now, she'll reveal where the location might be. Making his way to the place on his flying sword, he heaves a sigh of relief after facing a powerful fiend. He's realizing that he should keep his guard up even more in the future. After all, this vast land is still the deadly forest of the beasts. Not far from him, there's a religious leader celebrating the dragon god. The humble people from the riverside village came to the god's abode to offer their gratitude. They're giving the dragon god 3 innocent virgins to be made servants. Something sounds extremely fishy with this religious offering. This is their way of pleading for the fiend's favor and protection. The village leader reminds the girls to never leave the altar until the dragon descends. One of the sacrifices, named Wol Yong, is tasked with looking after the other 2. They must do their best to serve the dragon god's will for the sake of the village. Sool arrives at the location and observes what's happening in front of the cave. Those sacrifices should be for an ancient dragon. He thinks that he must have the right place. Since he's certain that dragon gods don't exist, this must be the place he's looking for. With these offerings, the ancient dragon might arrive at any minute now. In preparation for that, he set up a flag formation on the cliff. For now, he needs more information. So, He jumps off the cliff and heads straight for the sacrifices on the altar. The three girls await the descent of the dragon while peacefully sleeping. Sool jumps from the cliff directly to the altar itself. He carries the girl named Wo Liang, waking her up with extreme confusion. He proceeds to jump within human levels of elevation, leading Wo Liang to believe that he must be the dragon god. Sool enters the formation he's set up, and she thinks that the god's descent is quite different from what she's heard. He treats her with great care. She didn't expect that the dragon god would be this kind of person, but Sool breaks her daydream, saying that he's not the dragon god that the villagers talk about. She starts to panic after being taken by a different person. He respectfully introduces himself as just an alchemist passing by, and he has an urgent question to be addressed. It seems like the man in front of Wo Liang is fully aware that he's doing something rude, but he just needs some clarity after looking at the altar. After this conversation, he'd gladly put her back. She starts to notice the intermediate-level jade ravine boar by his side, a mark of someone extraordinary. He also exhibits some high-level techniques to bring her here. She knows she can't be rude to an expert, so she asks him what it is that he's curious about. He wants to know if their dragon god is an ancient dragon, but it seems like she's not even familiar with the term. He explains that it's a fiend with a scaled body, 2 horns, a red chest, a blue back, and a white pattern on its neck. She's not entirely sure about that description since she's never even seen the dragon god before. This lady is being sacrificed alive to an alleged god that only the village chief has seen before. She agreed to this for the sake of the Riverside village's protection. For the sake of making the god happy, they must do anything. She believes that if they can save the many by sacrificing the few, then it's the way to go. That is the destiny of the weak people, after all. After their talk, he finds out that the ancient dragon has been active for the past 5 years. As his master said, there's a place where an ancient dragon has fallen, and this might be that place. First, he can't confirm anything without witnessing it, so he needs to stock up on power first. The cave fiend already warned that he wouldn't be able to do anything with his current strength. He spends the night meditating in the middle of his formation until the sun rises. After reaching the 11th stage of heavenly rebirth, he starts to feel the gates of spirit energy. He feels that it's raining in the gates of heaven. The barrier inside him exudes a huge and strong feeling. His masters told him that to break through this, he'll need to use his spiritual energy and his character. His cultivation is interrupted with the arrival of someone. The heavy steps emanate power. It's a man wearing extravagant silk. The ladies on the altar notice his presence and prepare themselves. They kneel down to greet their dragon god. He evaluates the excellent sacrifices this time around. But he also notices that there's an alchemist observing him from afar. Sool feels the threat of someone strong looking at him directly. The man below can detect his shadow concealment from afar. He picks up the boar as he knows that this place just became extremely dangerous. He wants to retreat on his flying sword after finding out that he's out of his depth. But a silhouette of the hulking beast interrupts his route. That beast transforms back to the smug man with red hair and extravagant clothes. Oh shoot, I thought this guy was a fraud. Sool immediately takes out multiple shadow orchid essence vials from his pouch. This lowly thing throws the vials at him, but the man realizes that something is amiss. The vials emit a remarkably foul smell for him. This only serves as fuel to his anger. Behind the man is a figure of his true form, a draconic monstrosity. Sool tries his best to escape the dragon's wrath. It transforms to its real fearsome form, chasing after his flying sword. It unleashes a massive electric attack, but the Jade Ravine board jumps in to rescue. The little guy takes the full brunt of the attack to save Sool from harm. And so, our tiny piglet passes in his master's arms. But the ancient dragon isn't done terrorizing Sool yet. He demands for the human alchemist to fall. And Sool is hit with a powerful concentration of energy. It falls from the skies, but the dragon's descending speed is even faster. It touches the ground first after changing back into human form. The man cleans himself up from the awful smell of the shadow orchid essence. As for the falling Sool, he has another plan for him. The man lifts him midair with magic and takes out the remaining vial of the essence from his pouch. This dragon is fascinated by this invention. He also finds the unconscious Sool quite interesting. Dragon Master incoming. Inside the dragon's cavern lies an ornate palace guarded by female soldiers. The ancient dragon is engaged in a discussion about Sool's shadow orchid essence witchcraft with another man who shares a similar hair color. For that very reason, he has brought Sool captive into his palace. After losing consciousness, Sool has just awakened in this unfamiliar place. Now that he's finally awake, the ancient dragon praised him for creating something quite enjoyable. He recognizes his position and dismisses his vials as merely a trivial skill. The dragon reassures him that he will not be killed. He suggests that if he wanted him dead, he'd already be so. If they desire the extraction method, he will gladly provide it. However, the dragon believes that this human possesses more skills up his sleeves, so he inquires about poisons. The human confirms that he's capable of crafting dun pills from sacred herbs and poisons from poisonous herbs. With that information, the dragon plans to put his skills to the test. Nevertheless, if he's merely boasting, he'll be swiftly killed. Sool bows down and expresses his understanding. The palace guest asks his dragon brother Geo why he would entrust something so crucial to a mere human. It's the lesser devil poison. Geo could have crafted it himself, but he has an even more important dun pill to create. He intends to use his late uncle Jo Yun's Niden to make this pill. This revelation shocks the palace guest, who assumes that this dragon killed his own uncle. However, Jo Yun passed away 50 years ago, and he wasn't even a match for his uncle. From their conversation, Soul learns that this specific dragon died 50 years ago at the hands of an unknown assailant, causing a feud within the family. He recalls his master's tales of the mysterious alchemist who slew an ancient dragon in the past. This ancient dragon was challenged by someone named Ochuk to a life-and-death battle, with his uncle's inheritance at stake. It seems people are in for shocking news today. In truth, this is why he summoned the palace guest. The sacred herbs he needs would necessitate a portion of the guest's bitter plant as a supplement. Yet, if this man gives it to Joe, it would likely wither after its life force is drained. Yo assures him that this sacrifice would undoubtedly lead to victory. And in return, if Gio wins, this man can acquire the powerful Ochuk's Niden. If this is his reward, he's willing to exchange his bitter plant. Soul realizes that when this confrontation occurs, he will have his opportunity. He must focus on surviving for now. With all details settled, Gio retrieves something. He tosses it to this human captive to ingest. It's a prohibition pill, a poison that would gradually affect him in various ways, ultimately leading to death unless the antidote is administered. Over the course of a few days, his body and health would deteriorate slowly. Thus, running away isn't a viable option. Gale also hands Soul the document for creating the lesser devil poison to study. He instructs the guard to escort Soul to the medicine room to begin immediately. Based on the symptoms described, he's convinced he was administered the treacherous fifth poison. While crafting the lesser devil poison, he must secretly concoct the antidote. Beyond the cavern palace lies the less opulent medicine room. One of the lady guards escorts the bound Soul into the facility. He inquires whether she's also from the riverside village. His continuous questions prompt the woman to silence him. She believes there's no need for conversation since he's destined to die soon. He recognizes that even if he complies with the ancient dragon's wishes, he won't be allowed to leave. They aren't naive, they understand the situation. The guard's face contorts with sadness as she hears Soul's resignation. They journey further into the medicine room. Finally, they arrive at Soul's workplace. In front of him stand shelves upon shelves of precious medicinal herbs and poisons to work with. It's an astonishing sight. With such resources, he can undoubtedly create the lesser devil poison while secretly formulating the antidote. The guard will now observe his every move. After his restraints are removed, the guard ensures he comprehends the situation. He reassures her that he won't do anything foolish. A myriad of valuable ingredients is within his grasp. According to the documents, he needs approximately 2 months, and it's been a month and a half. The dragon should soon check his progress, and as he anticipated, he's notified that the palace's master is seeking him. In the main hall, the ancient dragon demands a report. Soul reveals he completed the poison the previous night, which surprises everyone. Even if he followed the document meticulously, it shouldn't have been this swift, but he attributes it to his talent with dun pills and poisons. He devised his own new method to create the poison. The amused dragon intends to test Soul's talents. However, he never expected the dragon to take the toxic substance and ruthlessly hurl it to someone to test his talents. The lesser devil poison flew past Soul and struck someone behind him. It landed directly on one of the guards of the Dragon Palace. Instantly, it caused her to writhe in uncontrollable pain as the dark energy engulfed her. Though she's still breathing, she's paralyzed, confirming the efficacy of the poison. Although this poison isn't lethal, it's still intricate to synthesize. Stepping on the head of the paralyzed guard, Geo, the ancient dragon, is content with Soul's results. He's so pleased that he inquires about a suitable reward for Soul. Soul bows his head and humbly declines the rewards presented by the dragon. Geo nonchalantly ends the guard's life with a stomp, growing bored with Soul's response. Bro is a straight-up psychopath. Shivering on his knees, Soul requests the return of his pouch of abundance to aid his process. If this would enhance his efficiency in synthesis, the dragon has no issue providing it. Once he completes his dun pills, Gio intends to spend the following year absorbing them. He asks about the name of the girl currently attending to him, who is Dun Wol Yang. Her task is to observe and learn proper poison preparation from Sool. In Sool's mind, relief washes over him at the prospect of a year's respite. He acknowledges that after that window closes, he won't have any opportunity to escape, therefore, he must find a solution swiftly. He is then escorted back to the medicine room. It appears none of his belongings in the pouch of abundance have been touched, as they are all irrelevant to an ancient dragon. Frustration consumes him due to his powerlessness to alter his situation. Even Wol Yang can perceive his current distress. With respect, she addresses him, deducing correctly that he's contemplating a final escape from this place. The former guard who looked after him was a friend of Wol Yang's. She was informed of his thefts and covert concoctions. He explains that he's merely trying to resist the fate others are imposing upon him. Once the methods of dun extraction are passed down to Wol Yang, he'll become dispensable to the dragon. Nonetheless, even if he manages to flee, he'll succumb within half a month without an antidote. He discloses that he's been stealing ingredients to make a breakthrough while preparing medicines. Furthermore, he has already crafted an antidote for the ancient dragon's poison. Wol Yang is surprised by the revelation of the pre-made antidote. Beyond the Dragon Palace are the guards and attendants of Gio. They are welcoming a higher-ranking guard's arrival, who seems to be heading for the medicine room. Someone greets her with a voice identical to her own. It is none other than Sool using illusion. Imagine the possibilities of this ability. He finds mimicking the lady quite awkward. Slowly, his illusion fades, revealing his true form. He was compelled to take her form to come here without detection. He confirms that he has prepared the antidote, knowing that Jo Woon would never let him live. Yet, he wonders why the guards haven't reported his theft to the dragon. She has her reasons. Lady Yu explains that the powerful magic trap called the Dragon Line Windstorm guards the cave entrance. Sool questions why she's sharing this information with him. Her reasons aren't important, she simply wants him to concentrate on escaping. Grasping her intention, he continues to inquire about passing through the magic trap. The key lies with the 8 alchemist maids who know the direct path. All have undergone the law of spirit energy, while the odds of persuading them to assist him are low. With an antidote in hand, the situation changes. Lady Yeo will arrange a meeting with one of the alchemists. She insists he doesn't need to thank her, but if he succeeds in escaping, she hopes he will aid Wol Yang's escape as well. The meeting with the alchemist materializes quickly. Present are Wol Yang, Lady Yeo, and a powerful alchemist from the Dragon Palace. Lady Yeo introduces him to the senior alchemist maid. This is Im Sok-shang, one of the ladies-in-waiting, who's interested in detoxifying Gyo's sadistic poison. He identifies it as the treacherous 5th poison and is fortunate to possess the antidote. However, she's not ready to trust him fully. Doing so would put their lives at risk. Sool assures her that his knowledge is sufficient to improve poison recipes, and he's adept with antidotes. While he indeed finished the Lesser Devil poison earlier than expected, it doesn't guarantee the antidote's efficacy. In response, Sool has one question. He inquires whether Jo Woon has a 100% chance of winning against Okshuk. If Jo Woon loses, everyone will be unable to detoxify the poisons in their bodies. Im So-chang finds his sentiment amusing and laughs, acknowledging that their lives hang in the balance and she's being too blunt. Understanding the situation fully, she agrees to listen to his request if it doesn't involve getting him out of the cave. If they do that, she knows the ancient dragon will unleash his fury on the ladies-in-waiting. What he truly seeks is the opposite of that request. As he won't escape alive, he proposes that they end his life first. He's just like me. For real. The Dragon Palace is presently sealed shut, with guards stationed around the clock. Suddenly, signs of destruction emerge from within. A devastating energy erupts outward, sending guards flying from the shockwave. This man must be the worst boss to work for. Gio Woon emerges from his year-long cultivation with newfound powers. He's confident that this breakthrough will enable him to defeat Okshuk. He inquires of the lady-in-waiting if anything happened while he was focused on practicing his breathing technique. She reveals that Sool has died and apologizes for her oversight. Gio Woon reassures the dragon that Wol Yang has advanced her skills to the point where Sool tried to escape, fearing he'd become useless. He lost his life to the Dragon Line Windstorm. However, he managed to complete 10 pots of lesser evil poison, and Wol Yang can now take over the operation. Gio Woon continues to ask when Sool passed away. She tells him that the corpse was found yesterday, since he planned to kill Sool anyway. He instructs her to feed the corpse to the fiends outside. She follows the orders and leaves. Outside the cave, a cloth-covered body is encircled by wild fiends. A wolf approaches, ready to feast, but the body unexpectedly stirs. Sool awakens, finding himself outside the dragon's territory. Thanks to his stealth technique, he's escaped from that hellish cavern. Following the full moon, Jo, Woon, and Ochuk are set to engage in a deadly duel. Sool must locate Ochuk's cave as soon as possible. Before long, he discovers a volcano with searing lava. Observing from above, he descends to investigate further. This location matches the one senior Im mentioned. It must be Gyeoyeon's residence. This also means the entrance must be guarded by the Dragon Line windstorm. He knows how to navigate it, he just needs to be decisive. Upon stepping inside the magic trap, it activates at full force. Fiery energy surges from the ground, conjuring blazing tornadoes. Sool realizes the challenge's severity. Countless deadly whirlpools churn at the entrance. It's stronger than anticipated. You must pass through 7 specific gates amid the tornadoes. You must navigate the Dragon Line windstorm to succeed. He dashes through narrow gaps, fully concentrated. He reaches halfway in no time, getting closer to his goal. Meanwhile, the magic trap continues blazing from a distance. Nevertheless, Sool successfully crosses the line, safely on the other side. While he managed to enter, exiting poses a similar challenge. He calculates that Jo Woon has a 90% chance of winning the upcoming duel. Before events unfold, he must locate the teleportation circle. He searches diligently, leaving no stone unturned. He even climbs to a higher vantage point to no avail. 2 days pass, and he remains frustrated. Not going to lie, I would have given up in the first 10 minutes. He begins to suspect that the alchemist his first master met might have lied. His life was at risk to reach this point, yet there's no sign of a teleportation portal. In weariness, he tosses a rock. It lands on the scorching lava, revealing an odd reaction. Sool takes note of this strange behavior. He has another idea. Given the heat, the pool should be filled with molten lava. To test his theory, he attaches a bamboo dharma tool to a rope. He cautiously lowers the tool into the lava. He confirms that it doesn't behave like lava at all. It feels like being submerged in a lake. He continues to lower it without hitting the bottom. Instead of melting the tool, the lava does nothing. It's just a regular water-filled lake. He's determined to explore this possibility. Despite the terrifying prospect, he dips his hand into the pool. The dunk of both of his arms confirms his suspicion. That's low-key an amazing illusion. I'd love to have a fake lava swimming pool. As expected, the hot lava is just a normal lake. He must uncover what this illusion conceals. He dives into the depths of the illusory lava. He witnesses the meticulous measures taken to conceal this place. As anticipated, his ultima obscura device at the bottom. Swiftly, he swims down to the riverbed. Approaching the device lifts his spirits. His master was right, the teleportation portal is indeed here. He recalls that he'll need spirit stones depending on the distance. Presently, he has 30 middle-class and 80 low-class spirit stones. It's wiser to have too many than too few. This is what's needed to escape the dangerous beast-filled forest. He places every spirit stone in the middle of the device. The portal instantly absorbs every middle-class spirit stone. It devours them at incredible speed. In hopes of activating it, he supplements the portal with his own energy. Even this energy gets drained swiftly. The device lights up, but takes too long. Sool runs out of breath and spiritual energy. Finally, he succumbs to the environment. He closes his eyes, losing control of his body. He collapses on top of the teleportation portal. Sool stops breathing, while the portal continues emitting a blinding light. Unexpectedly, his necklace, a ring, begins to react. Unconscious, Sool remains unaware of the mysterious energy emanating from the ring. The ring's reaction intensifies the portal's light. The light grows to envelop Sool's entire body. Oh dang, mysterious baby ring coming in clutch. We have arrived in the Jeonyang Nation, specifically in the Lee District. Sool lies unconscious in an unknown location. He slowly opened his eyes, feeling pain coursing through his body. He noticed a blanket draped over him and recalled his last memory atop the portal. There was another alarming discovery. His internal gates of heaven had closed, causing his spiritual energy and latent powers to regress to the 5th stage of dun extraction. Did they just nerf our boy as payment for teleportation? The first master had already informed him about this phenomenon. While his experience would remain intact, he would return soon without any issues. However, there was another problem. He couldn't remember his current whereabouts. A kindly-looking man greeted him with joy now that he was finally awake. Unfortunately, he couldn't comprehend a single word coming from the man's mouth. Similarly, the man couldn't understand him either, leading to the conclusion that Sool might be from another country. Both of them struggled to determine the language the other was speaking. It became evident that Sool had been teleported to a different country, prompting the man to rush out to find a translator. Sool felt relieved to be free from the clutches of the forest of beasts. 5 months later, he was still residing in the home of the kind man. He had been informed that they would be leaving for something important soon. The kind man was amazed by how quickly Sool had become fluent in the language of the Jiangyang nation in just 3 months. Sool was unprepared for the large size of the party that was leaving the city. They were accompanying a young woman named Zhu Gaoryang to Mount Wenshu's open market in hopes of finding a cure for the master of the Li district. Sool asked why they wouldn't simply search for medicine in a nearby market. This was because immortals were apparently the ones who opened the Mount Wenshu market. The mention of immortals caught Sool's attention. The caravan departed with guards and attendants. The young woman and her entourage would need 2 more days of travel to reach their destination. They had come too far to return empty-handed. The young woman's father's condition was deteriorating daily. She inquired about the goods at one of the stalls. Despite her usual indifference, she was taking a personal interest this time. The low-level immortal merchant deduced correctly that this party consisted of ordinary people who hadn't embarked on the path of transcendence. She asked if this would be an issue. Since the day had been dull for the merchant, he was willing to answer their questions. He explained that the market operated on a principle of equal exchange and asked what they were seeking. Excitedly, she requested a herb to help her father's weakening energy. The merchant recommended a bitter root ginseng, known for its efficacy in nourishing the soul. Moreover, its effects would be even more potent for ordinary people. Seeing the sincerity of the young lady, the merchant agreed to sell this herb for just a single low-level spirit stone. However, the young woman was unfamiliar with the concept of a spirit stone. She called on Jiangbo to bring out their chests, which contained gold bars, jewels, and other treasures. The merchant, though, insisted on spirit stones, emphasizing that it was the currency needed for this market. Without the correct currency, they might not be able to make any purchases. Can I get those gold bars instead? It's useless for immortals after all. As they lacked spirit stones, Jiangbo comforted the young woman as they left the marketplace, their mood somber. Despite their efforts over the past few days, they had been unable to obtain anything. The young woman had tirelessly searched the market for 4 days, but her efforts yielded no results. However, thanks to the expedition, Sool managed to acquire some dharma tools and sacred herbs. He was contemplating how to repay this kindness. With their leader's health declining, Sool was worried that something dire might occur. Nevertheless, he held a strong belief that the elder master would recover. The night fell, and it became apparent that their carriages were being targeted by assailants. These villains had been tailing them since they left the marketplace. They waited for the moment when they thought there were no alchemists around. With a sudden burst of flames, the ground beneath the guards erupted in fire. They realized they were under attack by a bizarre fire in all angles. These 2 scoundrels were now hovering in the air, and the guards identified them as immortals. The scoundrels laughed arrogantly, confident that they had trapped the humans. They even threatened to kill everyone in the group. These guys couldn't have picked a worse target than this party. The soldiers were in an even more alarmed state than they already were. That's when the young miss herself exited the carriage to speak with the immortals. She introduced herself as the daughter of the head of Ju Estate, county magistrate of Li District, and stated that she would peacefully surrender their treasures. The scoundrels could see how clever and beautiful she was. She did not miss the opportunity to inquire if the villains above had the cure for her father. However, her pleas were met only with boisterous laughter. One of them told the young miss that they had no intention of dealing with anything troublesome. While they initially planned to kill everyone, the man now desired to take Miss Ju as his concubine. Feeling helpless against the words of the alleged immortals, she saw the man raise his flaming blade with the intent of burning everything except the treasures and the young miss. A massive fireball descended upon the soldiers like a blazing meteor. However, its descent was abruptly halted by none other than Sool and his blade. This development was beyond the pair's expectations. They found themselves face to face with the cold stare of Sool, stumbling like an idiot, unsure of what to do. The arrogant man was swiftly divided into 3 parts by 3 razor-sharp cuts. I'm pretty sure that middle cut has slashed something else. Ouch. His partner in crime hadn't even had the chance to react, let alone respond. In the criminal's mind, Sool was an alchemist far superior to him. Descending from the air, he humbly kneeled on the ground. He pleaded with Sool to spare his life this time and vowed never to appear before him again. However, met with a cold stare, he was informed that Sool couldn't grant that request. He had learned not to leave any troubles for the future. Jangbo and the young miss stared at him, unable to believe what he was capable of. A few days later, they returned to the Li district, welcomed by a feast. The food was excellent, just like the performances. Soul thanked the young miss for her hospitality and kindness throughout the months. In return, she expressed her gratitude for saving her and her people. This small community had welcomed him and cared for him as a complete stranger. Thus, he wanted to assist with any requests within his capabilities. Naturally, this lifted the young miss's spirits, and she had one wish in mind. She promptly took Soul to her father's sick room. His breathing was unstable, and he was in pain even while asleep. The local doctors couldn't identify his illness. Soul reached for the man's wrist to assess the situation. Before it lay a complete and detailed understanding of the leader's constitution. He quickly discerned what was afflicting the man. Inside the man's stomach, he found a venomous insect. Though it was of the lowest level, it's still a parasitic fiend. Did bro swallow a bug or something? The young miss was eager to hear his findings, and removing this latent poison was a simple task. The only concern for Soul was that this matter might be connected to another alchemist. He infused the man's body with his spiritual energy and crushed the parasite. Worried that Soul might be overexerting himself, the young miss urged him to rest, but the treatment was already completed. She was taken aback, as she had only seen him hold his hand out briefly. He assured the young lady that her father would awaken within the week. He explained the latent poison of the pinworm and how it had depleted her father's energy and nutrients. Currently, they needed to provide him with nutrient-rich food to restore his stamina. Hearing all this brought tears to the young lady's eyes. She knelt and pledged her eternal gratitude. He dismissed it, saying any alchemist would have done the same. However, the young miss's experiences with alchemists had been poor so far, while Soul had saved her and her father. Soul believed staying here for a while to gather information and regain his power wasn't a bad idea. He finally accepted her offer to repay her debt to him. After all that had occurred, Jangbo had returned to his daily tasks. It had been a year since Soul had last emerged from his locked room. The young miss and the lord had been incessantly questioning this poor man about why their savior hadn't emerged yet. But then, a familiar voice with a charming quip could be heard behind them. Soul had finally emerged from his year-long seclusion. Jangbo informed him how tough it had been dealing with the young miss and the lord's nagging. He was also obligated to attend the New Year's celebration. Since he didn't have a train for a while, it was a good time to join the festivities. The Jew family's New Year festival was a grand affair, especially this year, as it celebrated the Lord's recovery. A grand banquet awaited, filled with captivating sights and experiences. Soul couldn't afford to miss it. At night, the sky was illuminated with resplendent fireworks. Li District's New Year celebration lived up to its reputation. Every citizen was in a festive mood. The young miss, the Lord, and Soul were seated in the best seats in the city. However, Soul noticed someone with ulterior motives approaching. Judging by the aura, it seemed this person was in the early stages of heavenly birth. He was certain this person wasn't here merely to watch the fireworks. Soul wondered why an alchemist would sneak into the mansion. The pyrotechnics continued to paint the night sky. The Lord intended to personally thank Soul for saving his life, but when he turned his head, Soul had already disappeared. Is he giving hands and sword slashes for New Year's? Before the Lord could even look for Soul, he was already interrupted by an official alongside the alchemist. They had prepared wild ginseng for the health of the wise leader. Seeing this man, the manor head, he invited them inside to talk. He thanked the manor head for their concern, and the man introduced a disciple who excels in medicine. Trusting the man, he let the alchemist check his pulse. That's when it occurred to the alchemist that the leader had been fully healed. He composed himself and happily reported that the Lord was as healthy as he could be. The alchemist then excused himself to continue watching fireworks outdoors. Meanwhile, Soul hid himself from a distance, trying to get a feel for the intentions of the alchemist. His suspicions were strong with this one. The celebration of the New Year seemed like it wasn't going to end as the fireworks continued to explode one after another. The Lord also excused himself to avoid overexertion, so he entrusted everything to his daughter for the night. He lay down, putting his past illness behind him, but that's when he suddenly felt something wrong inside his room. He immediately tried to reach his ornate blade. He swung the sword towards the intruder, but the man just disrespectfully beckoned him to be quiet. He finally saw the face of the supposed medical disciple. With a blazing fire in his hand, he threatened to burn and kill everyone in this place right now. Hearing this led the Lord to drop his sword. The alchemist was surprised that the Lord referred to him correctly as an alchemist, a sign that there might be another one around. The Lord admitted that he's crossed paths with one. If that alchemist managed to get rid of the latent insect inside him, then that's a sign of great skill. The Lord threatened him that this ally is still in residence and won't stay still if he's harmed. But this alchemist doesn't care if the Lord is under someone else's protection, he'll just kill him without a trace. That's when Sool's voice escaped out of the void as he ripped through it with his sword. The weapon in the alchemist's hands was flung away with a sword strike. That same sword was then pointed at the man's throat in the blink of an eye. Sool finally decided to intervene in this encounter. The alchemist confirmed that Sool is the man Lord Ju is talking about. Sool apologized to the Lord for barging into his room in hopes of intercepting a suspicious person. He threatened the man to answer his questions without a fuss. He wants to know why the man wants to kill Lord Ju. The man revealed that his master is the forefather of Wang Guan, the governor of Namyanggun, a renowned alchemist. This master decided to reconnect with his worldly relations. Sool wanted to know more about this master. Wang Guan wants to kill Zhu Jiangwen to take the magistrate position. The man thinks it's silly and trivial, but it's his master's orders. Sool pressed the man for the name of this master. But the man wanted him to reveal his name and sect first. He introduced himself as Woon Sool, independent. And this man is Dun Zhubiang from the Iron Protector sect, and his master elder is Wang Tail. Zhubiang assumed that he knows what that sect means, so he told him to put his sword down. But before putting the blade down, he needs a guarantee that Lord Ju won't be harmed. Zhubiang found it unreasonable that he's doing all these because of a mortal. He wanted to find a compromise to help Wang Guang without harming the Lord. The man finally relented that there's no need to bump heads just because of a single mortal. This caused Sool to put down his blade. This caused Zhubiang to pull out a talisman while insulting him for being naive. The talisman transformed into a torpedo launching towards the Lord. But the multi-attack was intercepted by his transforming shield. Zhubiang was caught off guard by such a fast reaction and defense. He finally concluded that this alchemist is not someone to be trusted. He might have blocked the torpedo, but this only sparked greed for his shield. Sool found it unfortunate that they are at a point of no return right now. Zhubiang took this as arrogance and launched his fire and ice spells forward. All these measly projectiles were effectively blocked by his shield while he readied the Genesis sword to strike. But that's not all, even his entreaty sword has sprung into action. Two swords, one from the back and one from the front, are now locked onto Zhubiang. This is one of the techniques in the destruction sword arts. Yin and Yang junction at the 4th second. Both swords charged, leaving no way out. Zhubiang is put in a serious predicament between the blades. In response, he started to unhook the pouch of abundance tied to his waist. Coming from the pouch, a massive bear named Gyuwon materialized to block the blades. That's a literal pocket monster Pokemon. This is a fiend that can be suppressed into a pouch. He wanted to create it before, but he didn't have the materials. Perhaps now would be the time. The swords easily went through the massive body of the bear. It fell to the floor, much to Zhubiang's surprise. The man panicked and shivered in terror of what's to come as he fumbled for another talisman. Sool criticized the man's lack of experience relative to his level while sneaking past him. This fool is starting to grasp at straws, screaming at Sool. This prompted him to finally finish the job with a masterful killing move. While the corpses of the enemies lie on the floor, he asked Lord Ju if he's alright. He instructed the Lord to get a trusted servant to clean this scene up to avoid an uproar over the death of an alchemist. Since this guy isn't related to the manor, they can take care of him moderately. Lord Ju will make sure that he follows these instructions to the letter. And one more thing, he wanted to relay his greetings to the young Miss Ju as he's about to head out somewhere. He finally bade his farewell to the residents. We're now in Chaksan district at Wenshu Mountain. A familiar figure can be seen enjoying a drink in an establishment. It's Soul observing the alchemists of Wenshu Mountain leisurely when someone approached him. The siblings introduced themselves as Su Wai and Su Jijin. It took a second, but Soul finally recognized the two. A year prior, at Mount Wenshu Marketplace, Soul quietly observed the hard work and rejections of the young miss. He decided to sell unneeded Dharma tools to accumulate spirit stones and purchase materials for the Genesis sword. He used his advancement technique to become invisible to mortals. People started to gather at his spot to purchase his Dharma tools. The attention of the siblings was also drawn, and Su Wai inspected the tools. He even offered to pay generously. Returning to the present, they met again not far from the market. Since they were satisfied with his previous products, they wanted to know if he was selling again, and he confirmed that he was. The siblings wanted to see what he was about to offer first. As they got a previous connection, Soul had no problems showing them the tools. He revealed a bamboo flute called the Floral Flute. His Dharma tool possessed considerable strength. However, before Su Wai could reach for it, his sister had already grabbed it. She teased her brother for being tone deaf and thus unable to use this Dharma tool. It turned out that the flute could summon fiends. She intended to summon one of her tamed beasts and assured Soul that it wouldn't cause harm. Curious to see it in action, he gave his permission. A large black cat emerged from Sugijin's pouch. Despite its size, the massive predator seemed gentle in nature. It gazed directly at Soul. This creature was a middle-class fiend known as the Black Snow Tiger. Sugijin began to play a tune on the floral flute. The melodious music resonated in the cat's ears. It slowly approached the table and peacefully rested its head upon it. She's probably playing Mask Off by Future, with the floral flute's power to tame fiends and the lady's musical skills. This tool demonstrated great potency. She inquired if he was sure about selling this remarkable Dharma tool. They generously offered 7 middle-class spirit stones to buy it immediately. Finding the offer reasonable, Soul agreed promptly. He also seized the opportunity to learn more about the sects in the nation. Suwai explained that the nation held a balance between 3 orthodox and 3 unorthodox sects. The just sects were the Immortal, Mount Ju, and Awakened sect, while the malevolent sects were the Dauntless Association, Mendacity, and Iron Protector sect. Soul had heard of the Iron Protector sect and its elder, Wangtail, who seemed to have reached the law of spirit energy as an immortal. Wangtail used to kill and steal pouches as well. Realizing that his actions might have placed the Ju family in the sights of this malevolent man, he understood the need to grow stronger. Given that the siblings were from the Choksan district, they did not get along well with the Iron Protectors. As he was currently just a wandering alchemist, they had no reason to worry. They appreciated his honesty and extended another offer to him. Intrigued, Soul wanted to know more about this offer. The two revealed that they were attempting to capture a fiend and sought his assistance. A high-level fiend known as the fragrance tracer feline inhabited the mountains. Due to its keen sense of smell, it was incredibly elusive, but they had a plan. This was the first time he had heard of this type of fiend. The siblings already had a plan in place, and Soul's involvement was crucial. His role was to provoke the fiend aggressively to catch its attention. Finally, they arrived at the hunting site. It was highly likely that the tracer was perched atop a large tree. Suwai initiated the plan with his flag formation. Each flag landed perfectly in its designated spot. Now armed with a magical trap, they needed one more element. His sister produced the finest herb they had, intending to use it as bait for the fiend. You can't fool me. That's a one-piece devil fruit. Even if the tracer detected them, it wouldn't be able to resist the allure of this herb. Soul was the first to sense the fiend's presence. It emerged from deep within the woods and landed atop the trees with astonishing speed. It crashed down with tremendous force. Sugijin swiftly readied her talismans. A single paper talisman floated in the air, intercepting the fiend's powerful descent. The flags of the formation activated simultaneously, imbuing the energy of the trap. An almost invisible net formed, enveloping the woods. The fiend took notice of the situation but was moving too quickly. It landed within the net created by the formation. The furious feline found itself ensnared in a potent trap designed for its capture. Armed with their respective Dharma tools, the next step was to subdue the beast. However, the fragrance tracer refused to yield without a fight. It let out an angry snarl as they charged. Sugijin assumed a long-range position, surrounding the beast with her talismans. Once she had completely engulfed the feline in her power, she triggered a massive explosion. Soul was beginning to think that these two might not even need his help at this point. However, the beast emerged unscathed from the explosion. That powerful blast only fueled its anger further. The bloodthirsty fiend was about to retaliate. The fragrance tracer brandished its claw with its own energy, a cross swipe that would eviscerate everything in its path. It was locked onto their party. This strike alone could end their attempt at any moment. They had already used many talismans. The feline was just too strong. However, they had anticipated this level of resistance. The beast was starting to break out of the magical trap's barrier. When it freed its snout, it immediately began stockpiling raw energy to launch an attack. The charged energy was reaching its peak. It was time for Soul to finally intervene. The magic trap had finally been completely shattered by the fiend's destructive beam. Fortunately, Soul was there to absorb the shot with his trusty shield. The siblings were correct in their decision to recruit Soul against such a formidable creature. Behind the shield, he also activated the effects of the delicate jade staff. Small explosions rained down in the air, disorienting the fiend. Suwai seized this opportunity to strike and contain it with his Dharma tool. Sugijin also manipulated her tools to contribute. Her whip and his bandage effectively caught the fiend by surprise. Their Dharma tools successfully managed to constrict the fiend's movements. Looking up in defeat and anger at its captors, the fiend met Sugijin's final move as she absorbed the fragrance tracer into her pouch of abundance. They had successfully captured the fiend they had been hunting. She thanked Soul and left with utmost urgency. The beast might be hard to catch, but it's even harder to tame, so she needed to be fast. He asked why taming the feline was time-sensitive. It turns out that fragrance tracer felines tended to eliminate themselves within a few days of capture. Fortunately, they now had the floral flute to drastically increase their chances. Suwai handed Soul his compensation for the hunt. This man also needed to follow his sister right away to give her a hand. Soul was invited to come and visit the siblings in their manor as soon as possible. This lively guy still had something he wanted to discuss with Soul, but that would be for another day. He picked up the precious herb they had used to lure the feline near them. Having come this far, he might as well search for some sacred herbs too. However, his optimism was extinguished after 2 days of finding nothing. He was getting jealous of the siblings for taming a fragrance tracer feline to help with their hunts. While resting, he spotted an odd-looking cavern in the distance. There was a clear, large space beyond the narrow entrance, and fog was flowing into that place. He crawled through the narrow confines of the cave with a torch in hand. An adorable meow could be heard not too deep into the cavity. It was a feisty offspring of the fragrance tracer feline. It immediately reminded him of his jade ravine boar that had died in vain at the hands of a dragon. It was such a strong-willed little creature, but it would surely give in to the allure of the precious winter coconut. At first, the kitten was hesitant to approach him, so he rolled the winter coconut toward the kitten for it to feast on. The little one had a hard time trying to figure out how to eat it. Solo watched in amusement as the kitten failed to break open the coconut shell. He had to step in to open it up so it could be eaten. The adorable kitty wagged its tail in enjoyment of the precious herb. It even let him touch and pet its tiny body. At the same time, he infused a similar attribute throughout its body, just as the second master had taught him. The kitty realized what was happening and jumped away. This kitten might not be an ordinary one, he might have to use another method. He rubbed his body with the fiend's excrement to lower its guard first. He was determined to see who would win in their psychological battle. He looked at the baby tenderly, and it looked at him with soft eyes after finishing the winter coconut. 8 days later, Soul was out and about with his flying sword again. For now, he would respect the kitten's decision not to enter his pouch. However, this baby would have to get into it later. Back in the Ju family mansion in the Li district, the young miss could be seen reading her literature outdoors. Suddenly, she heard an unfamiliar meow not far from her. It was none other than her master Woon, with a new pet in tow. She updated him about the situation with the deceased alchemist, but it seemed like it would be fine for a while. She had been worried since he hadn't been around. A few things had caught him in the moment, so his return was a little late. But she was just grateful that he had returned, so she personally fetched him clothes to change into. Inside the mansion, he was trying to feed his new kitten with herbs. However, anything of low quality they offered to the fiend was coldly rejected. Taming this beast was even harder compared to making dun pills. Not only did it reject his food offerings, but it also attacked him with its sharp fur from time to time. This brat was not easy to deal with at all. Even after utilizing sacred herbs from the market, he had only managed to reach the 6th stage of heavenly birth. Low-level sacred herbs just weren't going to cut it anymore. This kitten was just too curious and hyper all around. With its mischievousness, he decided to name the kitty Wan Wan. Wan means to play in Mandarin. Now that they needed high-quality ingredients, it was about time they visited the famous Chaksan district.